Hello, science fans, and welcome to SHE-ensya. Why do we go hungry? Why do we even get bored? Why did we evolve to have religion? Why is makeup part of human culture? Why are babies so cute? Why do we think that aliens exist? Why do we ask questions? The SHE-ensya Why series will dissect some of our most head-scratching why questions, teasing out the scientific principles from historical records, conspiracy theories, and mass media. Join us in today's episode as we ask the question, why plastics? Everybody has seen it, images of coastlines filled with plastic waste. We see the damage of plastic on the lives of countless of organisms. We know that plastics create toxic byproducts that pollute our waters and make us sick. But plastics remain as an ever-present material that we use in our day-to-day lives. From the reusable heat-resistant materials that we have at home, to single-use plastics in our shampoo sachets, drinking straws, and, well, milk teacups. The first ever plastic was invented in 1869 by John Wesley Hyatt, who was inspired by a New York firm's offer of $10,000 for anyone who could provide a substitute for ivory. The call was due to the rising popularity of billiards, because it was putting a string on natural sources of ivory, which was obtained from the slaughter of wild elephants. Hyatt worked with natural materials, and what he found out was that by treating cellulose derived from cotton fiber with camphor, a plastic that could be crafted into a variety of shapes and made to imitate natural substances like tortoise shell, horn, linen, and ivory could be made. This material was called celluloid, and it was revolutionary. For the first time, human manufacturing was not constrained by nature. After all, nature only supplied so much wood, metal, stone, bone, ivory, and horn. But all of a sudden, humans can now make new materials. And this development helped not only the people, but also the environment, at least at that time. Advertisements praised celluloid as the savior of the elephant and the tortoise. Plastics could protect the natural world from the destructive forces of human need. The creation of new material also helped free people from the social and economic constraints posed by the scarcity of natural resources. Inexpensive celluloid made material wealth more widespread and obtainable, and the plastic revolution was only getting started. In 1907, Leo Baekeland invented Bakelite, the first fully synthetic plastic, meaning it contained no molecules found in nature. Baekeland had actually been searching for a synthetic substitute for shellac, a natural insulator, to meet the demands of the electricity industry of the United States. And as it turns out, Bakelite was not only a good insulator, it also turned out to be durable, heat-resistant, and unlike celluloid, ideal for mechanical mass production. Marketed as the material of 1,000 uses, Bakelite could be shaped or molded into almost anything, providing endless possibilities. The successes of Hyatt and Baekeland led major chemical companies to go into research and development for new plastics, and soon, more types of this material joined celluloid and Bakelite into the market. In contrast, however, Hyatt and Baekeland were searching for new materials to fit a specific purpose. These new types of research, however, were more interested into creating new materials and to look for applications later on. When World War II happened, a great expansion of the plastics industry in the United States was necessitated, as industrial might proved as important to victory as military success. The need to protect scarce natural resources made production of alternative substances a priority, and plastics provided those substitutes. For example, nylon, invented by Wallace Carothers in 1935 as a synthetic silk, was used during the war for parachutes, ropes, body armor, helmet liners, and more. Plexiglass, on the other hand, provided an alternative to glass for aircraft windows. World War II was a major turning point for plastics research, and it is asserted that due to the war, plastics has been turned to new uses and its adaptability was proven. In fact, during this time, worldwide plastic production increased by 300%. The surge in plastic production continued after the war ended. After experiencing the Great Depression and then World War II, people were ready to spend again, and much of what they bought was made of plastic. In product after product and market after market, plastics challenged traditional materials and won, taking the place of steel in cars, paper and glass in packaging, and wood in furniture. The possibilities of plastics gave some observers an almost utopian vision of a future with abundant material wealth thanks to an inexpensive, safe, sanitary substance that could be shaped by humans to their every whim. In post-war years, there was a shift in perception as plastics were no longer viewed as unambiguously positive. The material that was created to fulfill the need to protect scarce natural resources started destroying the environment because of human greed. The toll of the overuse of plastics started becoming observable. Plastic debris in the oceans was first observed in the 1960s, a decade in which the world became increasingly aware of environmental problems. Plastic also gradually transformed into a term that was used to describe something cheap, flimsy, or fake.
Oh my god! Oh my god, I remember so many people!
The public perception of plastic has continued to go downhill, and yet we still use it as an everyday material. So what's the deal? What does science have to say? Technically, the word plastic originally meant pliable and easily shaped. It only recently became a name for a category of materials called polymers. The word polymer means of many parts, and it is used to refer to a category of chemical compounds that are made up of repeating subunits. Polymers abound in nature. For example, cellulose, the material that makes up the cell walls of plants, is a very common natural polymer. Over the last century and a half, humans have learned to make synthetic polymers, sometimes using natural materials such as what Hyatt did with celluloid, and others using petroleum and other organic substances. Synthetic polymers are made up of long chains of atoms arranged in repeating units, often much longer than those found in nature. It is the length of these chains and the patterns of the molecules that make these synthetic polymers strong, lightweight, durable, and flexible. In short, that's what makes them so plastic. Now, petroleum as the starting point of most plastics is one of the main reasons why it is so harmful to the environment. When oil and gas are extracted, water previously trapped within geologic formations is brought to the surface. This produced water can carry with it dissolved solids, heavy metals, hydrocarbons, and naturally occurring radioactive materials in quantities that make it unsuitable for human consumption and difficult to dispose of safely. Extraction companies often temporarily store this wastewater in open-air pits with impermeable liners to avoid seepage. But heavy rain can cause these open pits to overflow. Next, oil and grease leaked into water systems can adhere to fish and waterfowl and destroy algae and plankton, disrupting the primary food sources of fragile aquatic ecosystems. And heavy metals from the process of extraction itself, oil spill, or wastewater seepage is toxic to most aquatic organisms, and even in low concentrations can be passed on from one organism to the next when animals and even humans consume polluted fish.
What?
And once plastics are created and eventually thrown out, a whole new problem comes around. Because even though a lot of plastic products are disposable, plastics actually last forever in the environment.
No! God, please, no! No!
Wood, grass, and food scraps undergo a process known as biodegradation when they're buried, which is a fancy way of saying they're transformed by bacteria in the soil into other useful compounds. But most bacteria don't like plastics. That's why they don't degrade, except with the help of the sun. Plastic decomposition requires sunlight, not bacteria. When UV rays strike plastic, they break the bonds holding the long molecular chain together. Over time, this can turn a big piece of plastic into lots of little pieces. But plastics in the landfill rarely see the light of day. But in the ocean, however, where a lot of our plastic waste floats into, there are a lot of discarded plastic bags, six-pack plastic rings, and so on that are continuously exposed to the sun. In 2009, a study from Japan showed that plastic exposed to continuous sunlight in the water can actually degrade in less than a year. But this wasn't good news because those small bits of plastic are actually toxic chemicals. These end up in the guts of animals or wash up on shorelines, where humans are most likely to come into direct contact with the toxins. One proposed solution to this environmental disaster is biodegradable plastic. There are two types of biodegradable plastic currently on the market, and the first one is called oxo-degradable plastics. These are still plastics derived from ethanol or petroleum that contain pro-degradant catalysts such as the salt of manganese or iron that speed up degradation in the presence of oxygen. The second type of biodegradable plastics are called plant-based hydrobiodegradable plastic or bioplastics. Bioplastics are created by extracting sugars from plants like corn or sugarcane to create a substance called PLA. Or it can also be through the extraction of a substance called PHA from microorganisms. Bioplastics, apart from being more degradable, also help solve the environmental issue of plastics by being sourced from something greener rather than petroleum. Biodegradable plastic decomposes into water and carbon dioxide in about 47 to 90 days, which is much faster than any kind of PET plastic floating around in the ocean. But in order for this to happen, there has to be the perfect kind of environmental conditions. Because you see, biodegradable plastic breaks down most efficiently in commercial composting facilities at high temperatures, which is, not really found in the Philippines, or actually not even found commonly in many parts of the world. And due to the COVID-19 pandemic, our plastic problem has also been amplified.
Ready for Lazada's 11/11?
Due to limited mobility, boredom, or even stress, the world experienced an increase in online shopping and food takeout orders by 90%. And related to this, the world experienced a 51.2 metric ton increase in plastic waste around June this year, which means it is still increasing. And 40% of this excess waste comes from plastic packaging. These plastic packaging materials are often single-use and cannot be recycled. So, they will most definitely go to dump sites. So, at the end of the day, despite the possibility of recycling some plastics, or even with the existence of biodegradable plastics that only biodegrade with specific conditions, the only sustainable way for us to solve our plastic problems is actually to lessen plastic use and consumption. And so, science has spoken. Plastics were initially invented to create sustainable alternatives for scarce natural resources. Plastic poses a huge environmental problem because its production has a large carbon footprint because it is mostly sourced from petroleum, and because of the fact that it creates a pollution problem because it is non-biodegradable. The primary mechanism for plastics to degrade is by exposure to sunlight, but this would result to the production of toxic microplastics. As an alternative, biodegradable plastics were created, but these still require specialized environmental conditions in order to work. The environmental problems caused by plastics can be overwhelming. But if you are a student in college or in senior high school in the Philippines, and if you belong to a recognized science or environmental organization, we may have a way for you to help. Today, November 10, is World Science Day for Peace and Development, and we at DLSU are organizing a workshop, contest, and symposium that tackles the plastic waste problem, particularly during this COVID-19 pandemic. We are looking for undergraduate and senior high school organizations to participate, learn about citizen science, and help battle the plastic waste problem of the Philippines. This project is called Eco Squad Goals, and we want to show you that it's worth it to care about the environment. If you want to learn more about Eco Squad Goals, please visit our social media channels. I will be sharing links at the description box below. I hope you were able to learn something from our short video on plastics today. If you did, I hope you can give this video a thumbs up and also subscribe to our channel. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, especially about Eco Squad goals, please don't hesitate to message me, your resident Filipina scientist, in the comments section below. Thank you very much, and see you around!